Welcome to the Dylan Experience podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Sessler, and my co-host, Kyle Zahn.
How you guys doing?
We're here to help change the way the world looks at mental health, self-development, overcoming adversity, all sorts of different things. And thanks for joining us. So today's episode 5, is going to be leadership. We're going to be talking about leadership. So this is exciting. I
Absolutely.
love this topic. We've got a lot to say about this topic, and yeah, what do you think?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Well, if I want to put this out early because I think leadership's going to get really intense. If you want to join my inspirational text platform and get the chance to feature your question on the podcast, text your question 1-608-336-4480. It's going to be in the description of the podcast in every episode, so just look there. So, what are we going to talk about first?
Maybe I give you a question. We go from there. How's that sound?
Let's hit it.
All right. So I'm going to hit you with a good one right away. How does one handle being a subordinate in a negative leadership environment?
That was a good question. Probably the golden question for everyone, right? Because at some point in your life, you're going to face a negative leadership environment, right? Somebody doesn't know what they're doing, or you know better, right? Or I don't know, the person's just going through a lot and just doesn't have their life put into a place where they can actually help you or lead you or support you. It's hard, right? Because that's so complex, right? It's such a complex question. But there are things that you can do, right? You can leave. That's an option. Not for everyone. Obviously, if you have a good job and you like that job and it pays well, you can stay, right? But understand what you're staying for, right? If you're staying for the money, that doesn't bring you happiness, right? Money doesn't make you happy. Money offers the opportunity to get you things and opportunities and experiences and stuff, right? It can get you stuff. And that stuff can make you happy if you use it correctly. But money doesn't outright make you happy, right? You could be making $100,000 and be super happy. Or you could make $100,000 and be super upset. But if you made $50,000, you'd be super happy, right? Because of the change in environment, the work structure, whatever you're doing, right? It fits you better.
Mm-hmm.
People need to stop focusing on trying to make so much money that all of their problems go away, because that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
But you can handle, being a subordinate within negative leadership environment in many ways, right? I think leaving is one of the better ones because it just literally puts it behind you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just, if it's a toxic environment, it's probably been a toxic environment for a long time. It's probably going to be a toxic environment for a long time. You can't change, toxic in a day, right? It requires culture. You have to look at the culture, and sometimes the culture just won't change, right? It happens to everyone. You at some point you're going to be in a toxic work environment in your life. I think people have like on an average of 7 jobs in their lifetime.
That's crazy.
Which seems so, those were old numbers. I think those are from like the early 2000s.
I would imagine it being more now.
Probably more now, right? So think about that, right? Like you're gonna, at some point, you're gonna have some kind of negative or toxic work environment. And it's important to understand your options. Like, I think leaving, like, it's probably not going to get any better. You can communicate. There are situations where just communicating could be the difference, between like, hey, this doesn't necessarily work for me. Maybe you could try this, or maybe you could offer me this, or maybe you could do this for me. Or, the more clear you can set your interactions, right, with people, the more you tend to gain out of the situation overall. Like communication is the fundamental for human life, realistically. If we can't communicate, guess what? The economy's not going to work. The family structure is not going to work. Political structure, the government, the world is just not going to work if we can't communicate. That's look at the internet. The internet was designed to communicate with everyone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Communication is massive, but where do we have the most problems? Talking to each other, right? We can't talk to each other.
Right. It seems like it comes down to the miscommunication and expectations towards each other.
Right. Like we as a society, as a world, seem to struggle so much. We have so many people on the planet. We can't sit down and have a decent discussion with people because we don't know, like, we're trying to win everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, why would you want to come to work, thinking about, you know, John. I'm going to work and I'm thinking about John. I'm like, I'm gonna win the argument with John today because he's been an asshole the past week talking about how Tom Brady's not the greatest of all time, and I'm gonna win. Who cares? Right? Why are you coming to work trying to win an argument rather than trying to, like, what does winning look like to you? Like, why does having a discussion or an argument of any type, why does winning look like someone else losing? Like, I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Right? Why do we have to win in a way that other people lose?
Why is it about you and not about us as a
Exactly.
team?
Right. When you have a discussion, when you have an argument, when you have a debate, why can't having that, like, why can't winning look like a coming together of sorts on what we're willing to give and what we're willing to sacrifice for each other? That's where negative leadership really comes from, is like, negative leaders tend to not look at it like we're all here to win, and they're more looking at it like we're all individually trying to win for ourselves.
Mm.
Right? I'm trying to get the promotion, so all of you have to work for me. I'm trying to be recognized, so all of you have to work for me. You're not working hard enough, Jan. Do better.
What kind of message does that send?
Exactly. And that's corporate America. It's like that, like, bravo, you're doing a great job, right? And then it turns capitalism into profits and money and money and money and money and money. And look at, like, look at the tech companies right now, right? Tech companies are so massively winning in today's market because they can't stop, right? Like machine learning and data and all of this stuff that humanity does not understand completely is is ravaging us. It's
Mm-hmm.
destroying our ability to communicate with each other because advertising is king, right? And Facebook and Google and Instagram and all of these tech companies are pushing, collecting data on people and understanding people for all the wrong reasons,
Mm-hmm.
because they're trying to sell stuff to people. We don't need to
It's,
buy more stuff.
it's all about the money.
We need to talk to each other, right? And when does a company's purpose become living, to support people rather than living to, or, rather than selling to support the next quarter's growth?
Hmm.
Right? Like, we've become hyper obsessed with growth rather than hyper obsessed with humanity. in business, in politics, and everything.
And growth is going to cause its own problems eventually too.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's there's societal culture, there's business culture, and then there's company culture, and all of them filter down, right? Our society's culture has created this almost necessity for people to be savages to each other, right? There's, and that societal culture comes from places like tech companies who advertise and algorithm everything into being, I mean, what algorithms have historically worked best are controversial stuff. That's why controversy has been maintained and almost exploded throughout the years. Like there's been more and more and more controversies that some are true, some are false, right? But that's what people see. They don't see the regular humanity of society. They see controversy, they see death, they see fear, they see aggression, they see war. If it bleeds, it leads. And what does that trickle into? Right? It trickles down into business culture being, we've got to create the best funnel so that people buy our product constantly. Like you see on Facebook ads, right? Like you see, do you want to make another $3,000 to $4,000 a month?
Baiting at that point.
Everybody is like, you can't. Not everybody can make $3,000 to $4,000 a month. Not everybody can make $10,000 a month from selling these coaching sessions that realistically don't give everybody what they want. And what does that trickle down into even further? Is that it's moving into a company structure and a company culture of trying to beat the competitor, trying to up our quarterly average and make more sales. And if you're not good enough, guess what? You're not going to be treated well. You're not going to be taken care of. And how is that positive? Right? If that's how companies think and that's how management runs their structure, then we're just feeding into the societal culture of, you have to be savage or you're not going to succeed. And I think that's detrimental to humanity, because you don't have to, right? You don't have to be a savage. You could be a good human being and take a little bit less money.
Right.
You can still do funnels, right? There's no problem with funnels. But when you're offering a product that isn't that good, because you're offering 17 different products with funnels, like, now you're just pulling money from people, right? If it's a funnel for a person trying to sell themselves and they have a good product, sure, yeah, that's awesome, right? You should. But when it's people, I mean, it's struggle, because like it's free market capitalism, and that's great. But where do we set the boundaries for people, right? Where do we hold people, not just people, but like companies like Google and Facebook and Instagram and all these companies that collect data on us? Apple's actually taken a stand, which is interesting. But where do we set the boundary of saying, like, this is what good leadership looks like, not for just a company, but for humanity, for the economy, for politics, whatever. What's positive and what's negative?
Exactly. It's a perception thing. It's morals and perception at that point.
Yeah. And it's tough, because life is so much easier than it was 50 years ago. We have Amazon now. You don't have to go to a store, but Amazon's collecting all that data on you, and they're going to sell you a product you don't need. Like, oh, that product popped up, right?
You're like,
That,
oh, gotta have it.
gotta have it. Gotta have it. And then you buy it and you don't use it for 3 years. And you're like, I don't know why I bought that. But they knew, right? Like they track your click
Views.
habits,
Yeah.
right? Like what you're viewing, what you're paying attention to, your click through rate. They're paying attention to everything that you're doing. And because they see that and because they pay attention to all that, they put a product in front of you that they have there is a high percentage that you're going to buy this, but they don't take any consequences about knowing humanity so well and knowing what we do as a species, right? And taking advantage, it's taking advantage of who we are and a lack of education and a lack of you know, financial understanding, and we buy a product that we don't fucking need.
Mm-hmm.
How is that leadership?
That's an interesting thought too.
I always look at leadership on a micro scale and a macro scale.
You
So
have
like
to.
if I'm a leader of a business, how is my impact affecting my customers? How is my impact affecting my employees? How is my impact affecting the world? And I don't want to start a business that impacts people negatively, like truly negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something like ethics is something that we don't talk about anymore, right? Business ethics, ethics in general, right? Not like there's a lot of companies out there that don't have any understanding of ethics. It seems like is that they're willing to take advantage of the data that they can collect on people and put things in front of them that they don't need. And I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I
like
think they do it specifically because our minds are wired to think what is most convenient for me.
yeah, I mean it's to the effect of um most of the businesses that join Amazon to sell on Amazon are not bad businesses. They're people trying to offer products to good people. But where's the line? That's where I'm curious is what is the line between, you know, putting a product in front of someone that will buy it versus like they have a good chance, but they might think about it. Like what's too much data and what's enough? Like that's a hard question.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the question that comes up in the next few years because, you know, companies like Apple are coming out with it's a minuscule feature, but it's a button that's going to come up in I think iOS 15. It's a button that's going to come up and say, I do not, are you going to allow or not allow this app to track my movements?
Mm.
Track my taps and my clicks and my click through rate and all that stuff. Facebook, Google, Amazon, all of those big tech companies, guess what they do? They usually have like 5 to 6 different tracking modules that are watching what you do and paying attention to what you're doing. What are they going to do?
They're going to attack Apple.
Right. And it comes back, like for me it comes back to leadership. Right? Why? Apple came out with something that protects their customers, and Google and Facebook and Amazon and Twitter and all these big companies are going to attack a company for protecting its customers from something that they see as bad, which they're not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Good job, Mark Zuckerberg, for building Facebook. But where's your limit? Right? I realize that you want to build, you want to build connections for people.
Mm-hmm.
But where's the limit? Right? I mean, TikTok's no different. I'm on TikTok, and I'm utilizing TikTok for, I think, a good purpose. Right? I like right now at this moment, what I do is a good purpose. But in 10 years, what if it's not? What if I look back on everything that I've done and I've built and I say, wow, I've taken advantage of some people? I would want someone to say, hey, Dylan, don't you think that you're taking advantage of someone with this? And if someone said that to me as a leader, I would have the wherewithal to sit back and say, maybe you're right. I don't like this. I don't like right now. What I offer is truth. What I offer is help, right?
Mm-hmm.
I offer products that help people. Like when I sit down in my life coach and I'm sitting with a client, I can see the impact I'm making, right? I mean, it's very obvious that when people talk to me, I change perspectives. That doesn't mean I change their lives. That's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I help people change their perspectives, and I help people understand themselves, and I offer them a product. At the end of the day, it's business, right? I support people. I help people. I do it in a very, very connecting way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still a product,
Right.
and I have faith in that product.
And a big part of that product too is them actually continuing to use it.
Right. But what I do not do is force people that do not want my product to buy my product.
Right.
And that's what it seems like the leaders of Facebook and Google and Amazon and big tech is kind of doing with their authority.
It's a start.
Is taking advantage of people, right? Weakness, capturing an understanding of our weaknesses through our data collection and utilizing that and forcing people to buy things. Not forcing, because you can't take away free will, but you can manipulate it. You can manipulate people into saying, oh, here's a Facebook ad about how incredible this product is. But the only way it would have been bought is because Facebook put it in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never needed it before.
It's a lot like news outlets these days too.
Right. And where's leadership? That's my question. Is like, this went from how does one handle being a subordinate
Mm-hmm.
with negative leadership to a discussion about, corporate and big tech leadership, not,
Like you said, small and large scale.
yeah. I mean, that's what kind of gets me with that, is that, we've allowed our privacy has been invaded for so long, but we've allowed that privacy to go to a point where we don't even know what a negative environment looks like anymore. And that's scary.
Yep.
Right? Because, we allow an algorithm to learn who we are and use it to sell us stuff, but not to help us change to become better people.
And that's kind of odd.
Right? Like, if there's something that's pretty profound in that, I think it was that.
Mm-hmm.
What I just said right there. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's like, when you don't think about that becomes pretty apparent, of like, we have machine learning that can learn what people, what people will buy. What if I put a blender in front of them versus a juicer versus a toaster. This person A, has the click through rate that they'll buy the juicer. It's a 96% buy. And person B has a 48% chance of the juicer, so we shouldn't put that there. Like, that's what the machine does, is that, like, it's learning through your clicks and through your tracking and what you're doing. Like, and we're using that to sell to people. We're not learning about people, right? We're not taking that data and understanding how we can better develop society, how we can change how we look at politics, because there's no problem there. you know that's just fine. We'll leave politics alone. Everybody's just fine and dandy how that runs, and we'll just let it burn. That's fine. We'll just continue selling you your juicers and your blenders and your
Because
your
it makes us money.
your funnel ads and all that. Like, we'll keep selling you all that stuff, but we won't help understand society and give that data to, or have that data controlled by an organization that says, you guys can't track this, right? You're tracking too much, right? Mental health, right? It comes down to a discussion of mental health, to me, because social media has dominated mental health, right? It transformed how mental health has run. And I think there's good things and there's bad things. In the early 2000s, we didn't understand the impact of electronics and devices and cell phones and all of these things. And it's not what we thought. We're like, if we're too close to if we're too close to the screen, our eyes are going to burn out. That's what I was told as a kid when I was watching TV. It's not that. What we didn't understand is that we lose an understanding of how to communicate, like, verbally,
right?
Because we're texting and we're calling, but we're texting and we're messaging and we're DMing, and we're not sitting in front of each other having a conversation about the things that we need to have conversations about. And there's no societal leadership that's sitting down and saying, there's a problem, right? And like, at this point, it's far too late in the day to make any kind of change with cell phones, but still, social media is a pretty profound, leader in all this. And what do they do? What is social media? It's a billboard. It's a billboard. It's selling us everything, right? If you look at how buying strategy has changed, we used to, in the 1980s, we used to go to grocery stores. We used to go to department stores. We used to go to malls. We used to go everywhere to go get our stuff. Now we go to Amazon, Facebook Marketplace.
All the different websites out there now.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave your home. Everything is literally at the touch of your fingertips.
Which is great. But it comes back to the tracking. It comes back to the data. And is it being used effectively? Obviously it's being used effectively for advertisers. Is it being used ethically? And there's no leaders that talk about that very much, right? And that's the scary part, right? It's interesting we went down that rabbit hole. I don't know why.
No, it kind of puts a lot of things into perspective too. That was a good conversation.
Yeah. This one might be more social media focused.
Hey, and that's all right.
It's all right.
If that's what brings us to it, it's all good. Next question I have for you then, if you're ready.
Yeah.
What are 3 steps one can take to become a more effective leader?
Well, lead themselves first. right? I mean, like the step number one, lead yourself, right? We kind of had a discussion beforehand talking about, um, talking about like this, like how I view leadership and how I kind of put it on this circle of self-awareness and perception,
Absolutely.
right? So self-awareness is necessary to really lead yourself. And if you're not self-aware, you're not going to care. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to notice the things that you do to other people, or the things that you of how you impact the environment around you. And if you're impacting the environment around you negatively, you're probably not going to be a good leader, because environment is everything in leadership. Because if you don't have an environment of trust, of connection, of discussion, of clarity, of integrity, of consistency, you're forcing people to segregate themselves. Of it's going to be the high school clique kind
Right.
of environment. But when you force people to come together and to have and to create values, to create principles, to create consistency and clarity, and develop expectations of all, and you do that under a leader who has empathy and authenticity, you develop everyone together, rather than you know allowing that clique to grow and become dominant, right?
Right.
It's not like leadership isn't about dominating. It never should be. It's about empathy, because leadership in itself is about supporting the people that do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I love Simon Sinek, and that's realistically Simon Sinek's definition is is supporting people that do the job. That's what a leader does.
Mm-hmm.
It supports those people. A leader doesn't do the job. They can help, right? Sometimes you have to step down and take, take your supervisor hat off and actually start doing the job to cover down and help out.
Absolutely.
But that's because your job is to support the people that do the job. And if that's what support looks like that day, that's what support looks like that day. You've got to do it. Right. And so it comes down to the first step is leading yourself. If you can't be an example for the people to respect and, you know, perceive as someone they can trust, then they're going to be watching you with one eye and watching the work with the other. And guess what? You're not a chameleon, so you're not going to look at both.
No.
You're going to watch your leader and make sure you're doing the right thing when they're watching. And then you're going to do the work. And then you're going to watch the leader. And then you're going to watch the work. And then you're going to watch the leader. And your eyes are only going to be on your work 50% of the time.
Because there was no trust there.
There's no trust. Right? And that's the environment. Is if I can, as a leader, have the authenticity to step out and say, guys, I'm not perfect. That instantly, right? If you are authentic about that and you instantly say, and you instantly do that, what you do is you create the opportunity for people to respect themselves within an environment, and knowing he's not perfect, so I don't have to be, but I'm still going to try. Right? That's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect, guys. I don't expect you to be, but we're going to try.
Exactly.
We're going to do our best. If you make mistakes, you make mistakes. The only thing that I expect is for you to tell me when you make mistakes, and I'm not going to hold it against you. If it happens a lot, then we're going to talk. But if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal, right? We're going to fix it. We're going to work through it. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And when you have the empathy attached to that authenticity of knowing, like, as a leader, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
but you also have the empathy to understand that people are human and they're going to make mistakes, is that you really start to create an environment, and when you're super clear about that, you're going to start creating an environment that offers people stress relief. They can breathe, right? The expectations are not crushing them, right? Like they can sit at their desk and realize, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to get fired. That's people's like safety, right? When you create safety for people, it allows them to actually work better and more efficiently and more effectively.
They feel more free.
Right. You still have to be consistent as a leader and hold them to the make sure you're getting your work done, right? It's if you leave people alone for too long, they become complacent. But when you micromanage, when you watch them constantly, they lose trust in you because you don't have any trust in them. When you come around and you say, do you know your job? Tell me about it. And they can answer you. Awesome. If they can't, okay,
let's talk about it.
Why don't you know that? Right. And it's not a slight on them. It's an understanding that people are human and maybe they haven't done that job in a while, or maybe they haven't been practicing that, or they didn't know, but we don't have to automatically go to, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, this savagery of what the economy has really turned to, is that if you don't meet the standard, then you are not good enough to be a part of the in crowd. That's not effective. That's why people are unhappy at their jobs, is that these expectations are crushing them. Like there has to be some kind of fairness and empathy and authenticity and trust between both parties of following, or workers and subordinates and followers, between leaders. And it's the first step is leading yourself. If you can be an example of someone that's authentic and empathetic, I think you create something within an environment of leadership that is the primordial soup of success, and not in a way that's taking advantage of people and hurting people.
I like that.
And I don't know, I probably step 2 and 3 are probably intermingled in that process. What do you think?
Yeah, I would absolutely. Yeah. In that process, and realizing that, making sure that the leader and the subordinates in that situation know that it's okay to be ignorant too, because nobody knows everything.
Right. Yeah.
Ignorance is lack of knowledge.
Yeah. It's just everybody's ignorant.
Yep.
I was ignorant about how to start a podcast about 5 weeks ago. Guess what? I learned.
As long as you take the time and the effort to actually learn something that you didn't know before, yeah, you're still gonna be ignorant about other things, but now you know some new things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's humanity is ignorant. It's funny because like you have to be careful when you use the word ignorance. And I don't understand why sometimes. Because why would you get offended at being ignorant?
Some people just put a bad stigma on the name, on the term, and it's like, why?
Everybody's ignorant.
Exactly. Nobody's perfect.
Every single person on this planet is ignorant, and I can prove it. Right? What do you know about rocket science? You're fucking ignorant.
Right.
Right? Like, or if you are a rocket scientist, what do you know about microphones? Right? What do you know about printers? Can you build me a printer? No, because you're ignorant. Tell me about the technology within binoculars. You're ignorant. That's okay.
Yeah. We're not expecting you to know every single aspect of life and everything that comes with it. It just does. You can.
You can be ignorant. You can accept that you're ignorant, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. That's allowed. And that's what I want people to start understanding, is that if someone calls you ignorant, be like, you're right.
You're right. Thank you.
You're absolutely right.
Mm.
But not about this. Like if that's the case, then like, but not about this. But if you are ignorant, admit it. Like everybody is. I am, especially.
Yeah,
I'm especially ignorant towards a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning every single day.
Yeah. If I don't know something, I'm out there trying to figure it out.
And that's authenticity, right? I just had this discussion. Like, be authentic. If you want to create a better leadership environment, be authentic. Be authentically you, and accept that sometimes you are not good at what you're not good at what you do. I've been your leader before,
Mm-hmm.
and I've expressly said I can be an asshole during competitive games. And I'm 100% right on that, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I go for it, and I ain't nice about it sometimes.
Mm-mm.
Right?
Volleyball, especially.
Oh yeah. I love it. It's a great release for me, but I tell people, I warn people, I'm like, I'm not going to be nice. I'm going to have fun, but sometimes it's at other people's expense, and don't hold that against me. If I do it, I don't mean it. Sometimes I get carried away.
It's the moment.
Yeah.
You're in the moment.
Yeah. But I'm still, the next day, guess what? I fucking care. Right.
Right back at it.
I will not be
Yep.
an asshole the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I get that shit out of my system with competitive games. And then when I'm working, when I'm doing leadership, I'm authentic. I own up to it. Like, I was a dick yesterday. I'm sorry. Like, whatever I said, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna deny it. It was me. It was my fault. I take full responsibility. I can't say I won't do it again. If you play volleyball with me, it's just a part of life.
You're just asking for it if you want to play again.
But yeah, I mean, like, you're allowed to be you. And you just have to be careful with what environment you are in.
Mm-hmm.
But for leadership, always be authentic when you say, I am not perfect. Right? If you think you're perfect, you're wrong.
Nobody is.
Right? And you probably know. Like, if you don't know, if you think you're perfect, you probably have bigger problems. Right? That's called narcissism.
You need to go figure that stuff out.
You might want to talk to somebody about that.
Yeah.
And you're just ignorant about something that's quite intricate. You're ignorant that you don't see that you have weaknesses.
That's yeah. And I know quite a few people like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Accept that you have weaknesses. That is an important fact of leadership. And know when to accept help from your subordinates, your workers, your soldiers, your whoever. Accept when they know how to do stuff better than you do. Mm-hmm. That's okay too. Right?
That comes down to a term that we hear in the military a lot. Everybody is a leader.
That's right.
Even if you're not in the title or the position, everybody is a leader.
Yep. 100%. I have a question for you, and I want to ask it in a way that it's kind of focused on our time together.
Yep.
And it's up to you how you answer. You do what you do.
My answer is truthfully as possible.
Yeah. Does a leader always do what is ordered of him, even if he knows it is not right?
No. Simply put,
Why?
no. Because a true leader should know what is right and what is wrong. They will take a they will take a heavy beating just so that their subordinates know what they're trying to do up there is not the right thing. And I've witnessed it firsthand, and you've said it to me. Look, we take a lot of shit off your guys' plate
Mm-hmm.
just so that you guys are doing the right thing and you're doing your jobs. And whatever you need from us or what we need from you, it's both way street.
Yep.
And the people above you trying to give you all this junk, you're a leader should be able to mitigate it as much as humanly possible. And I think you guys have set a wonderful example on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's especially through COVID. I mean, it's been such an
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
I mean, the army in general is such an interesting situation, you know, because I
Mhm.
mean, I call it a situation because it's a never ending situation. Um, and you never know. Like, as a follower, as a subordinate, as a worker, as a soldier, you really never know how much a leader does for you. You know, I didn't know until I became an E6, right? When I became a staff sergeant in the army, I didn't realize just how much I had to step into people and say, "No, that's dumb," right? And there were times where I had to step in and say, "No, that would get people killed." Like, are you stupid? You know? And you have to like there were so many points as an E6 where I had to look at people and say, "That is not a good idea, sir." You know, officers or enlisted, you know, like that is not a good idea. Here's why. And I had to train people on how to look at my job from my perspective and show them what is right. You know, show them what is, or at least show them why they're wrong, you know? And it was never a malicious kind of thing where like you're stupid and I need to make you unstupid. No, it was sometimes it was like they just didn't understand and
Ignorance.
ignorance. And it was, when you order me to do this, this is what you're telling me has to
This is
happen.
this is the result of what you're telling me.
And yep, this is exactly what's going to happen is we're going to walk up this hill, and because you chose a direct frontal assault on a multiple machine gun pit, you know, elevated position, we're all going to die,
You just turned my guys into Swiss cheese. Congratulations.
you know? And sometimes that's because like people get this short-sighted, we have to go in straight lines kind of mindset because they don't know any better, that they don't know that you can break the rules of the system and come at the enemy from behind, or come at the, you know, the problem from different angles, or ask one of these fine young gentlemen with a sniper rifle to take out the problem from afar,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Be adaptable.
Or drop mortars on them, like find different avenues of attempting to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's for some people when they first get into a situation of leadership, like a leadership situation, they just go and they don't stop and talk. Right? They don't sit down with the people who've been there for a while and say, "What would you do? What do you think?" You know, why
Do
don't
you
you?
think sometimes it's because they are restricted with time?
Could be, or it's a little bit of trying to prove themselves in in a hyper, a hyper competitive environment.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it could be time, but you know what? You know why that argument doesn't work? E6s know how to manage time better than officers do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the long and short of it. Is an officer can step up in front of a platoon and say, hey, we've got to do this. I'm going to say, E6 number one, why don't your squad manage this? E6 number two, why doesn't your squad manage this? E6 number three, why don't you manage this? E5, why don't you do this? E5, why don't you do this? And you know what an E6 would do? Like, give me squad leaders, right? He'd pull four guys over, talk to them, tell them, I need this done, I need this done, I need this done. Who's going to do it? One volunteers. Make it happen, right? It wouldn't be a conversation or a micromanagement of you need to do this, you need to do this. It would be who wants to take this? This squad does. This squad is responsible for this task. This squad is responsible for this task. And that's an army example, but realistically, like, you can do that with a sales team. Yep. Of like, I need online sales. An officer would say, you've got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And E6 would come in and be like, who knows anything about this? I do. Teach us. Right?
Do it. Let's make
right?
a class out of it.
The difference in perspective is simple. Is that when you look at people, there are people that will walk in and think they know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that will walk in and know they don't know what to do.
It comes down to something I read in It Takes What It Takes. There's 4 different classes of people. There's the, how did he put it?
I got the book right over there.
Yeah. It was a 4-box diagram of, it was unconsciously incompetent.
Yep.
Consciously incompetent, unconsciously competent, and then there's the consciously competent.
Yep.
And depending on where you are in that grand scheme of things is kind of like a baseline of where you are and where you need to go from there.
Right. And I'd rather, and I look at it like, if I'm a leader and I walk in and I tell people what to do and they've never seen me before, they don't know anything about me,
mm-hmm.
Are they going to trust me? Probably not. Unless my reputation precedes me, which sometimes it does, especially more nowadays. But when I walk in, I don't walk in and say, this is what we have to do if it's something important. I walk in and I say, what do you guys know?
Yep. Gives you baseline.
Yep. Who's good at what?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about yourself. Tell me about you. If I have no time, sometimes I'm going to have to be like, you guys have to trust me on this one. We just have to get this done, But then I always take a moment and say, who knows more about this than I do, right? I make that mental list of who is better at this than I am. And then I effectively use those people because I know that I can't learn everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I can learn enough about everything to know who to choose to function that and to prepare that and support that role, and that's what leadership is. Leadership isn't about mastering one thing, right? If you're a website builder, right, you're not a leader, you're a website builder,
right?
But if you understand how to build a website fundamentally, and you understand how to build a funnel, and you understand how to sell things, and you understand how to manage people, guess what? You're a business leader. you could build a business
Mm-hmm.
right there, you know? And that's the way it is. Like mastering one thing makes you
Really.
someone that can provide that. You're a highly skilled worker.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. But if that's all you got and you step into being a leader and then you treat everyone as if they have to be you as that highly skilled
It's not
worker,
going to go anywhere.
that's it's not how you treat people.
Mm-mm.
Right. And when you know, it's interesting. Like this started off as, does the leader always have to do what is ordered of him, or if he knows it's not right. I always love our discussions go
Mm-hmm.
crazy places.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like leadership, you sometimes you're gonna have to break boundaries and say, this isn't gonna work.
Mm-mm.
Right? We don't have enough time for this. We don't have enough resources for this, and we have to make something work. And we have to make something work in a way where everyone can still come out tomorrow and do it again.
Right.
And that's hard for people, is that, some people look at the book and say, we've got to do things by the book. And I'm an infantryman, right? My book is this, my Bible is the 7-8, which is the infantry, like, platoon skills,
Mm-hmm.
skills book. I can't remember what the nomenclature, or like not the name of it is. That we don't read the book. Like,
Because the battlefield adapts and you have to be able to adapt to.
right,
Leadership must be able to adapt.
exactly, because no battle's ever going to be the same.
No.
Right. Battle drill 1 alpha, flanking the enemy is never going to be the same.
Mm-mm.
It's never going to look like it looks on the piece of paper
Mm-mm.
that we're learning it from. It's good to understand the fundamentals, but what's better is to understand the experience and how it works and how people respond and how they react and how incoming fire looks.
Mm-hmm.
When you test yourself, in the fires of the plan, rather than trying to formulate the plan, you start to understand what is important and what isn't. Planning is important to a point, but planning, you could plan for years and you'll find the one scenario that you didn't plan for, and it will destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you build the fundamentals to overcome adversity, if you build the fundamentals within other people to manage, like, things without you, that's what I like to do. Is I like to teach my teams, my squads, my units, my platoons how to function without me. Because if I die, I die. It's like, you guys better figure it out.
They got to keep
Right?
going.
I want you guys to figure it out before that happens, so that when it happens, you're prepared. And that's how I live. That's how I work, is because I can't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I can't be the person to say, at every step of the way, this is what you have to do. You're a thinking, breathing human being, and I expect you to start acting like it.
Exactly.
Simple. Like, you can't live your life looking up to someone and expecting them to tell you how to do everything.
You have to take the initiative to go out there and ask, hey, can I learn about this from you? What
Yep.
can I possibly do to become better?
And sometimes you're going to have to break a rule or two.
Mm-hmm.
And say, yeah, I broke a rule. I got the job done. Make sure you don't break major rules.
Oh yeah.
I like to break guidelines. The things that are like rules, but they're not rules.
Yeah, they're just there to kind of give you a baseline of what we expect of you.
Right. Like, just kind of, I'm towing the line of, like, what's right and wrong. It's right to me, it's wrong to other people. Like,
And what's right is or wrong is based on perception.
exactly. And I like to focus on empathy.
Mm-hmm.
If I think, it's you're not taking care of people, sometimes I'm going to break a rule and say, we're going to take care of people in this, to the effect of like, if someone questioned me, I can look at them and I'd say, I'd rather break the rule and take care of someone and make sure they're okay, and make sure nothing's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen than not deal with you at the end. Right. I, I'm okay with this conversation right now because I know that my soldier's okay,
Right.
you know? And
And there's two different types of leaders in that sense too. There's the ones that are like mission first,
yep,
or there's the ones that are like soldier care.
yep. Mission of the man.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the man. The missions are always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
The men are not. And it's interesting to me, like suicide, right? And this is a societal thing, not just a military thing, but everyone gets hyper focused about missions. And then after someone commits suicide, they focus on the men.
When it should be the men at all times.
Yeah. The mission's important, absolutely. But if it costs, like if it creates the environment and the culture of not taking care of soldiers, is the mission worth it? You know?
Right.
Is and that's one of the things that I dislike about the military is that there's no accountability for leaders. It's an NCOER, it's an OER, which is an evaluation report. That's it.
And
Right?
it's once a year.
There's no leaders coming down and talking to soldiers, like really talking. I'm saying like someone that can truly connect with people and step in and say, how are you doing? Well, I'm not doing very good. It doesn't look like it. Right. I can just feel that and say, why? And have people be honest, like force people to be honest. And if your leader sucks, if he's doing the wrong thing or she's doing the wrong thing, and people are saying it, where's the accountability?
Right.
Right? Leaders, you want to talk about like suicide. Suicide is a result of people not bringing people together. Like the guys that have committed suicide. I knew a couple of them, right? There's 4
Yeah.
names on this wristband.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a couple of them. They weren't people that came together in the units. They were people that were made fun of and didn't fit in and weren't the guys that were popular.
Right.
That's up to leaders, right? I didn't have the most popular guys in my squad, but I kept them together,
Yeah.
right? And I like it's tough. Like it's not easy, but if you're not good at it, it needs to be addressed.
It's like right on the spot. You should have the self-awareness to understand, hey, I don't know everything, and I know that I'm not going to be the best at this, but th- I'm here. I'm willing to take the steps necessary to become the effective leader you guys need.
Yeah, and that's the problem is that guys, leaders come in with the idea that they know what's going on.
And it's the wrong attitude
It
right off
is
the bat.
absolutely, you know, I, I've been saying this a lot more lately, but I live within the presumption that I know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk into a situation, I know nothing, right? I walk into a life coaching session or a social media, um, strategy session. I know nothing, right? Yeah, sure. I've looked at your social media. Yeah, I've looked at the notes that you left me, right? You may have left me a big old paragraph about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but I know nothing, right? The information that you gave me is the information that you want me to know. But what about the information that you don't want me to know? That makes a bigger impact than all of the information that you want me to know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's say it's a social media strategy call, and you gave me all of this information about these are who your followers are. This is what you post about. This is what you this is what you do. This is who you are. But what you don't tell me is that you made a post 6 weeks ago that went viral talking about how you're a racist, or you're a like you were supporting something absolutely ridiculous, and you left that out. And then 3 weeks later, we're wondering why you still haven't grown. It's because people remember. Right. And like, who knows? Like that's a crazy example, but that's the kind of stuff, is like, you have to walk in on like with the perception as a leader that you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know what's happening. That you may know the job, right? You may be the best team leader in all the land at understanding how to manage tactics and fight battles. But you don't know your soldiers. And you may be the best team leader at that. But if you have no empathy for the guy who just lost his mother, and he's consistently late because he's suffering, and you have no empathy, guess what's going to happen? Is that guy's going to lose trust in you. He's not going to show up on time. He's not going to give a fuck about what you say. And maybe someday, he just might be sad enough to end his life and end his pain and suffering.
And that's going to trace back to you as a leader too, for the other soldiers that were witnessing those actions.
Right.
It trickles. It spreads.
Yep. And it's that small,
mm-hmm.
right? It's that small of an action that like people don't pay attention. And then they're oblivious, right? And then some people will act like I didn't have an effect on that. I knew some of these soldiers. I had an impact on some of them, right? I don't think I was the problem, but I wasn't the nicest person, right? I helped out a couple of these guys, but I also didn't do it. I wasn't nice all the time. So maybe I had an impact, and I have to address that within myself, right? I always like to have good banter every once in a while, but sometimes that's not the right thing to do. And I have to like for me, I have to think about that. Mm-hmm. I have to think about my impact on these guys. I know for a fact that I had impacted them in a good way, as well as not the best way. Right. I had talks with Sweatlick and Collison, the two guys I did know. I actually had a few talks with Sweatlick, some good ones, and sitting down with him and saying, like, what's going on? Tell me about life. Tell me about you. Mm-hmm. I had some really good discussions with him, but I also bantered with him. But maybe that wasn't right for him. And you have to address that. You have to look at yourself objectively and think, maybe I was part of the problem. But you also can't beat yourself up.
No, you can't. You have to have the self-awareness to be like, all right, what aspect of me or my actions had an impact or a role in the reaction or the action that this person did, but also not have the, I guess, the accountability and the empathy enough to say, hey, don't beat yourself up.
Yep.
Just learn, yep. Understand and process this.
And do better.
Mm-hmm.
You're not perfect.
Right.
I hope there's not guys out there that actually did the wrong thing. Like the truly wrong thing.
Right.
I know what I did wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Like I didn't outright tell those guys to go commit suicide. I didn't
No.
treat them really badly. I bantered with them. I
Oh
acted
yeah.
like an E6 in a unit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'd play, I don't know, like the game telephone, you know? You tell them to go tell their leaders, you know, stuff. And we'd go back and forth. And like it was a good time, but who knows? Right. But yeah, I mean, it's accountability. Like where is the accountability in what you do as a leader? Who watches you? Because I can tell you what, your followers watch you.
Oh yeah.
You know, my followers are going to be watching this, you know, and people are going to see, they're going to see what they see. They're going to see, you know, what I'm talking about. They're going to understand me in a deeper way, and people are going to pay attention. And it's about, like, people are going to perceive me in a way, and they're going to pay attention to their self-awareness. Like, I have to be aware of what perception I'm showing people, because if I'm not, I could be showing people the wrong, like, a perception of them
Mm-hmm.
that they like, that isn't what I want them to understand.
Exactly.
And that's the cycle, right? I think that's the leading yourself cycle is self-awareness, perception, understanding perception, self-awareness, understanding perception, self-awareness. And it's constant, right? And conflict informs that.
Mm-hmm.
People are afraid of conflict. And you're losing out of one of the biggest self-awareness inspiring things on the planet, and that's conflict. Right? You talking to me, I mean, that's a conflict. Right? We talked about this in episode 1, I guess 1 and 2.
1 and 2. Yep.
You know, like, you came to me and had a discussion, and that was a conflict for you because you were afraid of it. In a sense, you were nervous about it.
Sure.
You know, you didn't know what I was going to say, and it was, what should I expect? What's going to happen?
I'll be honest. I was nervous even reaching out,
Right.
because I saw you as, hey, you are my leader at the time.
Yep.
And I didn't expect the kind of conversation we had to come.
Yep.
And like I've told you before, I've never had a leader quite like you.
There's not a lot of people
Not
like
not
me.
not trying to gaslight you on your own podcast here, but literally, in my 9 years of being in the military, if I had leadership that acted accordingly like you have, and if the military had more people like you in their own aspects and their own jobs, it'd be crazy what we could get done.
Yeah. I know. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's it's something that I've recognized for a long time, and I do what I do because I know that how I do things helps people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I do a damn good job. I'm a damn good infantry squad leader.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that. I'm very confident in that role. Like, I'm a killer. You know, like, when you put 8 guys underneath me, I know exactly how to manage them. I know how to run them. I know how to complete the job and get the job done. And I'm effective. But I can also sit down with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're struggling with something, I can reach them. I can reach them a damn sight better than most E6s that I've ever met. You know, and there's something to say about that, right? I'm not saying that I need to be cloned or anything like that, but my leadership is different from people's. but it's effective on two fronts, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be understood. People need to pay attention to that.
Right.
You know, I
I
don't
get to
have,
the I get to the point where I'm just like, all right, in the military they should have like a leadership like counseling NCO of some point that all the like NCOs have to go to this class and be like, all right, here's Dylan Sessler. He's gonna teach you guys how to be effective leaders.
but the problem is how do you choose that person?
That's a good point.
Right? Because the
That's a
military
good point.
has a definition of leadership,
Yep.
and it's
Do you like it?
it's arbitrary. It's simple. It's simplistic. You know,
So it's broad, too broad.
it's very broad. You know, let me see if I can look it up.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Army's definition of leadership. Leadership is the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish the mission and improving the organization.
Nothing in there that says soldier care.
I mean, it is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's a definition.
Mm-hmm.
But how, we have warrior leader course and senior leader course and, what is it? Army leader course, I guess.
It's the advanced leader course.
Advanced leader course. We have these leadership courses, but we don't have discussions about empathy. We don't have discussions about integrity. And
maybe that should be something that's brought up in those courses. Maybe the courses need to be restructured.
Yeah. I mean, and here's what I think the problem is that when you imagine a tribe,
mm-hmm.
small tribe, 10 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 men, 5 women. At some point, everyone's going to become related. That's how I think the Army is on leadership. The Army creates a system of leadership in which everyone becomes related. And we never grab from the outside, input people, and say, listen to Eric Thomas, listen to Brene Brown, listen to, Alan Watkins or Gary Vaynerchuk or Jocko Willink or Simon Sinek, even though they might be business, they might be sports, they might be, I don't know,
right.
life coaches.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
No, we tend to take retired sergeant majors, captains, majors, and they're expected to know the courses that the military says, hey, this is the curriculum.
Yep. And it's never anything different.
No, there's no change. There's no adaptability. There's the courses almost seem vague.
It seems, to me, and this is going to be a long podcast, but to me, it seems regurgitated in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not new material. It's not a fresh perspective, right? Because sometimes what I think we need in the military is more empathy. But guess what? The Army doesn't teach empathy.
No.
I feel like I'm the in the military that talks about empathy. That's it. I've never had someone else in my leadership circles that has ever used the word empathy in the military.
That's upsetting.
And it's a valid word for the situation that we're in, because historically what I've understood is, especially infantry is a bunch of people and that have struggled through things. Infantry dudes are some of the people that have had the worst pass, right? They've had the hardest histories of of like violence, of neglect, of abandonment, of parental suicide, of, you know, alcoholism, drugs. Like, some of these guys have been through a lot of shit, and then they come to the infantry, right?
And
And yet,
then they see more shit.
and we have no empathy,
Yeah.
you know. And I sit there with, I've had heart to heart discussions with more soldiers than I can count in my career in 13 years, where one or both of us have cried, right? And it's sometimes it feels like it's the first time they ever cried. And like, that's not, I mean, in an infantry company, like, you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the feeling is. That's what it feels like. I've had guys that have lost mothers. I've had guys that have lost grandparents, and, friends to suicide. I've lost soldiers, right? Soldiers I know, right?
Right.
And no feelings. Right? They don't show it until I talk to them. Like, they have to be some kind of stoic hero,
And we were talking about that on our last podcast, like how men in general are forced to grow up showing strength.
Yeah. And it's not fair.
It's not.
It's not fair to them. Like, I get it. Like, you can act tough. You should act tough,
Yeah.
right? Because the world's savage, and if you don't act tough, it's going to eat you up. But you can't always act tough. You can't always be strong. You can't always be stoic. Sometimes you're going to have to find a place, a person, a moment where you say, I can't do it anymore.
I
I've
have
got
to
to
express myself.
I've got to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Army needs more leaders that enforce that.
Mm-hmm.
We need leaders that will say, hey, we just lost 4 soldiers to suicide. How do you guys feel? Tell me. Because I'm feeling pretty down. I'm feeling pretty hurt. Right? And not because I'm not hurt because they made a choice. I'm hurt because we didn't see it coming. And we need to. We need to do better.
We need to address this.
We need to talk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because it might not end at 4. And obviously I'm talking about, I'm holding up my arm because I've got a band on here that has 4 names of 4 soldiers that I know.
Yep. Trevor's got my band, so.
And when are we going to start doing the thing that actually makes a difference on people's lives?
Mm-hmm.
And that's stepping into feelings, emotions, and empathy, and stepping back from the mission for a second, and recognizing that though the Army has a requirement to get the mission done, sometimes the rules and the expectations do not fit where we are. And that sometimes that we have to, as leaders, right, and above me, have to look up and say, hey, we can't accomplish this mission. We need time. We need a moment. And if you're not going to give us a moment, we'll take a moment, and you can slap us all you want on the wrist. But guess what? We've lost 4 soldiers to suicide. We're going to take a minute. It shouldn't have taken 4. It shouldn't have taken 3. It shouldn't have taken 2. It really shouldn't have even taken 1. And that's the Army's fault, right? The Army should be saying, when you get home from deployment, You need to take a month and bring everybody together in that month and talk about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how you feel. Talk about these things. Force people to get mental health just services. Force them, right? I don't think it should even be an option. It should be a mandate. Is that you're going to go talk to a therapist of your choosing and we cover it.
Yeah.
Thank you VA, right? If you want to help people, that's what you do. You force them to, you give them the opportunity to have a discussion with someone that actually cares, that actually has the ability, like me, right? Because I think I do this incredibly well, as I sit in front of someone and I say, listen, you don't have to talk to me, right? That's fine. But I'm going to tell you this. You're struggling. I can see it. I can feel it. I know it. And if you're not going to talk to me, I understand, right? I'm not going to judge you for whatever is going on, or whatever you had to whatever you had to choose, whatever you had to go through. I don't judge you, right? I admire you for your strength and for your courage. You showed up, and that means something to me. And if you just want to sit here, if you want to cry, go ahead. I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to listen to you. You know, I know whatever it is that you're struggling with is hard, and you may not know exactly how to express it, but that's okay, because however you express it, I'm not going to judge you. You can say it wrong, and then I'm going to listen to you say it right next week when you're ready to, you know, when you tell me, like, hey, you know what I said last week, I didn't say that right. This is what I want. I don't care. You know, I'm here for you. I do that incredibly well. And I help people see a way to just feel it without even having to express it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that can be taught. You know, it doesn't have to be scripted, but it can be taught how to be non-judgmental, how to be, you know, more empathetic. That can be taught. Like I may have a skill, right? I may be really well practiced, but I'm not the only one that is allowed to be empathetic. No, nor am I the only one that's allowed to, you know, be non-judgmental. Like, someone else can do it too.
Right.
That'd be great, because there's a lot of people that need help.
More people that are like you, or in some shape or form have the character traits, it, the more the merrier for all those people out there that are just struggling.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what we need more than anything
Yeah.
is connection. We don't need, you know, I would rather have a bunch of dudes that are B and C level soldiers than a bunch of studs that won't talk to each other. You give me whoever, I'll make them into a team.
You can literally, if how do I explain that? You can take those B and C soldiers, right? And as long as they're willing to express what they're feeling, you can turn them into A's.
Absolutely. Together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. If you ever get a chance to read Extreme Ownership, whether I think you haven't you? Extreme.
No.
So
My first book was It Takes What It Takes, and then I read Dare to Lead.
yeah, read Extreme Ownership, because there's a part in that where they're talking about SEAL training, and they're talking about teams, and they took a team in Buds that was just killing it, right? And they took the leader from that and transplanted it to a team that was just absolutely failing. They hated each other. They were just, they hated it, and they swapped, right? The bad team leader went to the great team, and the good team leader went to the bad team, guess what happened?
The good leader brought that bad team back up.
Yep, and won.
Mm-hmm.
The boat, like there was like 10 boats or something like that in this race. The bad team was always in last, and the good team was always in first. The bad team with the good leader got first.
It's amazing.
Good leadership changes things. It doesn't matter. Like the fight, it's not about the followers.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the leaders. And we're not investing in the leaders enough. That's the reality.
It's sad. It's sad to think.
Yeah. Empathy. I think it's all empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because anyone can take, when you go to Afghanistan, anyone can drive a convoy and get them from point A to point B. It's not that hard. Yeah, you might get lost. Some people are not good at navigation.
It's fair. It's fair.
Right. But it's a lot easier to find someone that can be a decent combat leader than it is to find someone that can talk about emotions and talk about feelings. And yet we invest all of our time, money, expenses into teaching leaders how to be good at the former rather than the latter. There's no discussion on empathy. There's no discussion on emotions. There's no discussion on feelings. And that is what leaders suck at in the military. There's some good ones, but there's not enough of them.
They had outside help and knowledge that the army, the military as a whole doesn't provide.
Most of them have been through it. That's like the good leaders have been through it.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe a couple generals will listen to this.
Okay. Maybe they'll see it, and I hope it makes them think. I really do.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, this has been a long one. We could talk plenty more about this, but
I think this was a great start to this, though.
Yeah, we'll have more discussions on leadership.
Oh, yeah.
And this was kind of like a social media kind of leadership ethics kind of everything. This was kind of a catch-all of an episode. I don't even know what I'm going to name this one.
Sometime in the future, I'm sure we'll narrow it down and break it down.
Right.
But
right.
I think this was a great start.
Yep. Well, if somehow you made it to the end of this episode, the longest one so far, for sure. I hope you check out, if you're on YouTube, you can see it. I have new merchandise. This is PTSD, my PTSD collection.
Purchase my shirt.
Yeah. Purchase my shirt. Check it out. Dude, they're awesome. So if you can only hear this on most of the podcast parts. So if you're not on YouTube, the PTSD shirt is kind of like a drop down of P, T, S, and D. The P is perspective, the T is transformation, the S is speak your truth, and the D is defy the darkness. And it's kind of a new way of looking at something that's been historically stigmatized to be negative, right? And that's kind of all of my lines of t-shirts and apparel. It's all focused on trying to rebuild the stigma of mental health to be positive. So go to www.dylansessler.com. You'll find my apparel link under products. Check them out. If you have any comments, check me out on social media, leave a comment, get in touch with me. Let me know what you do. Maybe you got a t-shirt idea you want me to look into, let me know. But yeah, I think these will help start changing the way we see mental health and PTSD especially. So yeah. And with that, thanks for joining us on this week's episode. It's been a absolute pleasure as always. And join us next week. We're going to be talking with a special guest. I don't know which one is going to be on the next episode. I've got two lined up that are incredible. The next one, I shouldn't say the next one. One of them, the one that was actually supposed to be today's episode, had a live domestic violence situation that she had to go and respond to and help and support, and like literally, I mean, like she messaged me like 20 minutes before the episode and was like, I'm so sorry, I can't make it to our commitment. I was like, no, do not be sorry for that. Like
No,
that is,
you go handle that.
I admire that so
Yeah.
much. So I'm so excited because
that's another story to tell.
She's such a huge influence on, she's literally doing it. Like that's incredible. So I'm excited. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You got to tune in. If somehow you made it through the hours of this podcast, you got to tune in. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. So we will, we'll catch you next time, and let's change your life.